Well, let's begin. And by just settling in, first of all, getting mind and body together, just take a breath. We want to generate our bodhicitta motivation, bodhicitta being the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all mother sentient beings. So we work on ourselves to develop the qualities necessary in order to help others to become free from suffering. And bodhicitta begins with compassion, looking at the suffering, which, unfortunately is very easy to see all around us in the human realm, in the animal realm, and even in other realms that we can't see. The people on our street, in our town, in our country, and other countries, war-torn countries. Um, you know, I don't really want to go on this so much, but please just think of these beings and generate compassion in your heart, and then form the wish to attain enlightenment and the determination to do whatever is necessary to attain enlightenment for their benefit. Ansanda Samgara Shiri Sampamakara Jibani Shuna Sosonagnata Denga Saso Katerman. Omi Chiki, Tipo Jane, Busum Sanke, Quigin, or when they ran some chicken as soon as I pass. So wait a minute, pass one. So today, I'm going to talk about the guru, so-called guru. This word guru, unfortunately, has really taken on negative connotation or incorrect at best, let's say, connotation in the West. Um, it means heavy, actually. It means with the word guru is a Sanskrit word. It means heavy, as in heavy with qualities, so many qualities, right? And the word in Tibetan it was translated in Tibetan as lama. So lama is an abbreviated form of lana mepa, the word lana mepa, which means nothing higher. Okay? So if people go around calling themselves lama and guru, it's a bit strange unless they're really that high, right? Although I will say in the Kagyu tradition, it is common for anyone who has done a 3-year retreat to be able to use the term lama. So in that case, I don't have any, there's nothing wrong with that in that tradition. But in our school, the Nyingma school, it's a bit ridiculous to call yourself lama unless you have those qualities. Pardon me. Um, excuse me 1 second. I really need to get a glass of water. So we can use the word teacher for guru, but it's not really enough, right? Because it's not the same as your language teacher or your gym teacher or what have you, right? But I know that our own teachers prefer that term to certainly to guru and sometimes even to lama. Um, but when we use it, like in our newsletters or on our website or whatever, we use a capital T, teacher. Hey, Melina, good morning. So the term Rinpoche is a title that means precious jewel. Okay, precious jewel. And so you'll often see so and so Rinpoche, this and that Rinpoche, and I will refer to like my own teacher as Rinpoche or Tuku Rinpoche. Tuku is another title. Tuku means true is like illusory, or yes, sort of illusory, and or emanation. And Ku is body, so emanation body, meaning someone who has um, purposely taken rebirth, is a continuation of a particular consciousness that has attained enlightenment. So these are all just terms that I'm putting out there to explain to you what they mean. So Melina, you emailed me a question, but it's a whopper. Well, let's see what it is, and maybe we'll cover it next week. So if anybody ever has questions that they'd like me to cover, I just ask that you email it at least, maybe a few days before Saturday, so I have time to, um, you know, prepare something. Okay. So many cares. Okay, well, we'll cover this maybe in class. We'll cover that. Okay, thank you, Melina. All right. There we go. Okay, so continuing. Um, so a lot of times when we're not familiar, people who aren't familiar with Buddhism and they first hear this term guru or disciple, or, this kind of thing, they get scared, worked up, right? They feel like, oh, these people are in a cult, or, they're just giving away their life to, this charlatan or what have you. Okay. It really is not that. There are charlatans everywhere, for sure, in every tradition, including Buddhism. There are definitely charlatans, but that is a perversion of the actual relationship as it should be. So sometimes guru or lama is kind of roughly not really translated, but sometimes they use the word spiritual friend, um, which has more of a connotation of walking the path kind of with you, right? And it's not so, the word doesn't have so much the connotation of power over, okay? However, even the word guru or the word lama um, should not have that connotation, okay? There is a certain dynamic of that, just in the sense of here's a person who is our guide. So in the same sense as if you are going to take a hike in the mountains, let's say you're going to climb the Himalayas, Mount Everest, which I highly do not recommend, for many reasons. But you would need a Sherpa or a guide, right? Who knows the path, who knows what you're going to need, who knows when to stop, when to go, all these kind of things. You don't consider that Sherpa as your master in the sense of master slave relationship. You don't consider them um, taking advantage of you. Quite the contrary. Here's the person that you have hired in that case to guide you, because you know and you accept that they know more than you. So you're going to hopefully listen to them. If you value your life, because climbing Mount Everest is life threatening, um, then you will follow the directions of your Sherpa, who has climbed the mountain many times and knows it like the back of their hand. So it's more in that sense that we should consider the relationship between the so called guru and the so called disciple, or the teacher student relationship. In the same way that you would want to use a reputable trekking company to hire your guide to climb Mount Everest, you want to make sure that your spiritual guide or your spiritual friend is reputable. You want to make sure that they are actually an advanced being, if not enlightened. Okay. And how do you do that? Well, you observe them in the traditional teachings, um, it is really, really emphasized that we should um, thoroughly examine the teacher before accepting them as our guide. And that in the traditional teachings, they say that we should examine the teacher for 12 years. So that's a really long time to examine someone, and we may not have that kind of time, especially in our day, but it really emphasizes the point of being careful and thorough in our examinations. So, what can happen sometimes is people get swayed by the charisma of a teacher. Now, a charlatan can have charisma, and an authentic teacher can have charisma. Okay. But the problem is the charlatan only has charisma. Okay. So, uh, uh, a real teacher will have, may or may not have charisma, but they will have much more important qualities like bodhicitta, like, compassion, truly caring for their students. Um, they will have walked the path already. They will know all the teachings, in great detail. So we should watch them. We should watch them and examine them and see, beyond whatever feeling that we might have. And it does happen sometimes, right? Sometimes because of past connections with that particular being, we might feel, really swept away. We might feel very inspired, That's great. That's wonderful. We should not ignore that, but we should not take only that as our um, authentication of the teacher. Okay. Um, Even if we have that, we should still take some time before committing to this teacher. Okay. So if you again go back to that analogy of the guide who's going to help us climb Mount Everest, if that guide, we might really like them. They might be very personable. They might be really cute, they might be seem really kind. They might seem like they know what they're doing and stuff. But if they don't, we could die. We could die on the mountain if that person doesn't know what they're doing. So we're not going to die if our teacher or guru doesn't know what they're doing. Okay. But will be a tremendous loss because right now we have what's called a precious human life, okay, which is essentially combination of factors that means that we could come in contact with the Dharma, practice the Dharma, and advance on this path in this life. Very, very difficult to get those things. If we end up following the wrong person, who is not an authentic teacher, who doesn't have compassion and so forth, bodhicitta, doesn't know the teaching, at best we waste our life. And that's really a tragedy. It's such a tragedy. And at worst, we end up doing negative things because we believed in this teacher. And there's plenty of examples of that, right? If you look at, Jim Jones, for example, it's Jim, right? Yeah, Jim Jones with all those people, that's where the phrase drinking the Kool-Aid came from, right? Um, or Heaven's Gate, who um, had their people take their own lives, with this idea that they would be transported to another planet. Like things like that happen. Or Charles Manson, they're very charismatic, got people to follow him, and they ended up committing murders. So this kind of thing can happen. So at best, you waste your time. At worst, you end up doing a lot of negative things. Okay. Um, so we need to examine the teacher. And how long you examine them, it's really up to you. You, again, if you want to follow somebody just because you fell in love with them the first time you saw them, okay, do it, but you're taking a chance. Okay. If you want to take a couple months or a couple of years, whatever, it's up to you. But you should examine does this person know the Dharma? Do they really know it? Okay. Um, do they how are they treating their students? And that can take a while to see. Okay. Because sometimes these Charlatan types can really hide their behavior for quite a while. Okay, so you should see that. How are they treating the students? How are the students treating each other? Because that is also a factor in seeing, a potential problem. Okay. Sometimes you have a really powerful teacher who might accept a lot of difficult people because that teacher has the ability to tame those people, right? So I wouldn't use only that as the metric, but um, it is a factor. And then personally, how does this teacher understand you? Do you understand them? Okay. So these are just some of the factors. And if you look in traditional texts like Words of My Perfect Teacher, they outline in more detail kind of what a real teacher is like. Okay. And when I look at that list and I look at my own teacher, Tuku Palmo Rybicki, I mean, he's not missing one single point on that list. I have total confidence in him. Um, so, and I'm very, I really consider myself extremely fortunate to have a teacher like that. And if you have a teacher like that, or like Jigme Kensler Bichet, or like Sonsa Kensler Bichet, or Mingyur Bichet, there's so many, um, consider yourself extraordinarily fortunate because they are really hard to find actually and very, very rare. So, okay, so now we've gone to a teaching, we've been inspired by this teacher, we spent a little time, however much time we feel is appropriate, sort of looking into them, making sure that they seem to be authentic. And then we may ask them to accept us as their student. So from that teacher's side, they have a choice whether to accept us or not, right? So it's a two-way street. Yeah. The student, you know, decides, I want this person to be my teacher. And then the teacher decides whether or not they want you to be their disciple or their student. And why, you might think, well, why would they not want me? I'm fabulous. I'm awesome. Of course they want me. Well, we might think, why would a teacher refuse someone? That they might refuse someone for various reasons. They might know that they're not the right teacher for this person, that this person would be better with another teacher, in which case they would usually say that to the person, like, I think you're better off with this particular Lama, or I just know that we're not supposed to be whatever together. Sounds a little weird, but I think you get the point. Or they might reject someone because that person is not an authentic student. So we have been studying on Wednesdays, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche's text, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, which is a really wonderful text. Highly, highly recommend this text. And in that text, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche says, there's charlatan teachers and there's charlatan students. So that's, really struck me because I never really thought about that, but it fits in perfectly with what I'm saying here because we can pretend to want to learn, but not really want to learn because we want the Dharma to add to our spiritual collection, for example, right? um oh, it's really, so common these days, where people follow a lot of different paths and they consider themselves, a Catholic Buddhist or Jewish Wicca or whatever. They just mix and match according to their whims, and it's not respectful to any faith, really, to do that. Certainly, you can be whatever religion you want. You can do whatever you want, but if you want to progress, that kind of approach isn't going to work. It's not going to work because you're not following any path authentically, completely. Usually, what happens in that situation is people are searching for bliss or like a constant state of bliss and not um, spiritual progress because spiritual progress is going at some point. to bump up against your ego. Yeah. And if people are doing that, if they're making their own stew with bits and pieces of all these different traditions, then the moment that their ego gets challenged, they end up just switching to another faith or taking part, taking an aspect of another faith so that they can just continue to feel good about themselves. This is not spiritual progress, okay? Not at all. It's complete spiritual materialism. So, why did I bring that up? Um, I don't remember, but oh yeah, yeah. So the teacher might reject a student for that reason. They might see that, oh, this person is not really interested in the Dharma. They're interested in um, putting another thing in their museum, in their spiritual museum, so they can show all their friends. Or worse, much worse, is they might want to receive the teaching so they can pretend to be a guru and have power and um, abuse people. So they might reject somebody for that reason. Okay, for those reasons that I mentioned. So let's say that the student has accepted the teacher, the student has asked the teacher has accepted the student. Now you're really in trouble. Now you're really screwed, man, because now you have committed to this person and this person has committed to you. And that is considered a sacred bond. Okay. And that's exactly why you need to be really careful about who you want to follow, who you decide to follow, to make sure that they're authentic. Um, because now you have committed yourself to following this person. You're going to follow this guide. And if we go back to that example of climbing Mount Everest, you know, those Sherpas, like, there's a part of that climb between like two ice cliffs, let's say. I know there's a proper word for that, but I don't remember what it is. And what they do is they attach two ladders across this abyss that you are supposed to walk on. Okay. Now, you have to really trust that that ladder is going to hold. Okay. Going to hold when you walk across this abyss. Because if you fall, you die. And I've seen these, not in person, obviously, but um, on videos, I've seen them placing the ladders that are just like tied together. And it's not exactly stable. They are essentially just doing that. And there's like not something flat on the other side that's holding the ladder. It's like stuck into the side of the mountain. And it usually holds. If it doesn't hold, the Sherpa dies because they're the first ones who walk across it, right? So you're taking a chance on trusting the Sherpa that this ladder is stable enough to carry you across it. Okay. So that's an important level of trust. You're putting your literal life in the hands of the Sherpa. So, in a similar way, when we decide to trust this particular teacher, this guru, this lama, this rinpoche, whatever, then we're putting our life in their hands. We're putting our spiritual life in their hands. And we are saying, I'm going to do what you say. So if that person is a charlatan and you say, I'm going to do what you say, and then they say, go do something harmful, that's terrible, right? So we got to be sure. We have to be sure. Then what you might find once this commitment is actually made is that your relationship changes. So the teacher might become more strict with you, more hard on you, right? Not because they don't like you or they want to punish you, quite the opposite. They want you to progress. They have made a commitment to you, to your enlightenment. You have made a commitment to them. to trust them. Okay. And after that is past that line, okay, they may put you in difficult situations. Okay. Ask you to do difficult things, but not wrong things. Difficult things as in, I don't know, you know, I want you to do 3-year retreat. I want you to do X amount of practice. I want you to go back home to your family when you want to stay here. This kind of thing. Okay. I mean, in the old text, you'll see quite outrageous things that teachers have asked their students to do. But these days, it's more this kind of thing. I want you to run a center. I want you to whatever. Okay. Um, or they will point out your faults, which is really hard to hear, right? But it's so important to hear, because how are we going to progress if we don't know that we're doing something wrong, right? We're not going to be able to progress because we don't see that we're doing, we have this blind spot, right? And our friends aren't going to point out these things to us. And if they do, they're not our friends anymore, right? We just reject them. I don't want to see you anymore. You're not my friend. You said X, Y, Z, right? But the teacher is going to point out what we're doing wrong, again, not to hurt us, but to help us progress along the path. Okay. So they may say to us, you have no compassion. Or they may say to us, you're really being selfish, you know, or they may say to us, um, how dare you, think that way about a real practitioner or a true practitioner, something like that, that we just feel, really gutted by, right? But we need to know those things. We have to know those things so that we can progress. Okay. If you think about a doctor, right, a surgeon, they have to cut us. They would have to just cut us open and do some really serious surgery on our insides, right? That's, brutal if you think about it, right? But why? Ultimately, it's to help us, yeah, to cure us of some problem. Um, the beauty of having a Lama do this is that they will know what to say, when to say it, and how to say it so that we will hear it. Yeah. Whereas a friend might really want, again, with good intention, might want to help us. We might be in a relationship, let's say we have a partner, a romantic partner, and we're we're always complaining about this partner to our friend, right? Oh, he did such and such. Or, oh, she did such and such. No, no, no. And our friend wants to say to us, sees that we are also part of the problem, right? And they want to tell us that, hey, maybe you should look at what you're doing that's contributing to this. And we get so furious and we're just like, oh, I can't believe you said that to me. And then we decide to break up with this friend. And later we might find out that they're right. I don't know. But that's an example of how a friend might try to point out what we don't see, bring to light our blind spots, right? So the teacher's goal, and this is something that is really, really important to understand in this dynamic, you know, in the beginning, for sure, we can see kind of the teachers up here and we're sort of down here and we're trying to learn and so forth, that the teacher's instructing and we're trying to follow the instructions. Okay. But the teacher's goal is not to maintain that dynamic. The teacher's goal is to help us rise up to their level or even beyond. Okay. It looks like a power over situation, but it's actually a power from within situation. Okay. If you look at like a cult leader, their aim is to maintain a power over, to have control. Okay. To yes, to keep people, to have control over them, to use them, abuse them, and so forth. Okay. From the Lama's point of view, their aim is to help us progress, as I said before. They want to help us grow up. They want to help us grow into our enlightened nature. And so their whole like goal, their whole point is to help us realize our own enlightened nature. So sometimes that is termed, or often, I guess, that is termed the inner guru, right? The guru within our own enlightened nature, so we can be independent, so we can get to the point where we don't necessarily need a teacher anymore because we ourselves are realized. Okay. So we have to really understand that dynamic if we're going to see this relationship in a proper way. And sometimes in America in particular, people like to say, well, we don't need a guru. This is, this is passe, this is an Eastern, construct. We don't need that. We're Americans. We're rugged individualists, right? We don't need this BS teacher business. Okay. It's so dumb, it's so dumb. It really doesn't take a lot to think about. We need teachers from the second that we're born until the present day. When we think about our parents, they taught us how to speak, how to eat, how to wipe our bums, how to, yeah, go to the bathroom. Then in school, we're learned, we're taught, how to read, how to write. If we know a musical instrument, somebody taught us. If we know how to drive, someone taught us how to drive. If we know another language, someone taught us another language. If we know how to cook, someone taught us that. To build, to, anything, everything that we know how to do, someone taught us that. So why would we need a teacher to learn how to play the piano, but we don't need a teacher to do the most difficult and challenging thing, which is to attain enlightenment? It doesn't make any sense. Of course, we need a guide. Of course, we need a teacher. That's just, it blows my mind that people can think that way. So, yes, we need a teacher. We need someone who has, just like the Sherpa, right? We need someone who has walked this path before, who knows the path, who knows the pitfalls, who knows the right direction to go, and who knows us and knows what we as an individual need to progress on the path. We may not like it, we may not understand it, but if we trust that teacher and we've done the right, examination of that teacher to see that they are actually an authentic teacher, then it behooves us to follow their instructions, no matter how difficult, if we want to attain enlightenment. If we just want to be comfortable, then we shouldn't get on this path at all, because it's not comfortable, baby. I'm telling you, it's not comfortable. Sometimes, yes, often it's very nice, it's very pleasant, it's very, especially in front of the teachers, it's really great, super inspiring and fantastic, right? And I miss it very much, being around them. But if we want to progress, it's not always going to be comfortable, because it requires work. For one, requires a tremendous amount of effort to not just do the formal practices, but to do our level best to um, bring the teachings into practice in our daily life, to challenge ourselves, to challenge our our belief system, to challenge how we see ourselves, how we see the world, how we see others, how we see life itself, right? All of that is very challenging on the deepest levels. And we have to be willing to go there. We have to be courageous to face ourselves, to face reality, to face how it is. Yesterday I was walking, and I just was thinking about being young, and how it's hard getting old. I'm now 63. I know people say it's not that old, but it's a lot older than 33. Okay. And, I really see a lot of changes in my body and my mind and my eyesight, um, you know, in my voice. There's already a lot of changes that I see. So, it's hard. It's hard to get old and it's hard to be old. And we it can be hard to face that reality, right? Which is why you have Botox and plastic surgery and, filters and Photoshop and all these kind of things. Yeah. Because it's hard to face that. It's hard to lose one's youth. It's hard to know that, every day we're a step closer to death. It's hard to know that it's only going to get worse. In a sense, in a sense, it's only gonna get worse, right? Because every day we're just older. Every day we're, again, closer to that moment of death. That's a really hard thing to face, and we don't need Buddhism or a teacher to see that, right? But it's really helpful if through the teachings we have these kind of constant reminders like impermanence, death and impermanence, precious human life, this kind of thing. It's really helpful to be able to face those things, to be able to have the methods and the practice and the view that helps us to deal with those things, to deal with aging, to deal with death, to deal with loss, to deal with disappointment, expectations, all these things, right? Very, very helpful. Not always easy, but very, very helpful. So, the relationship between the student and the teacher, or the guru and the disciple, is extremely valuable, very, very important, and very useful if we have the right understanding of. All right, so we're going to stop there and we're going to do some meditation. Okay, so just going to do some mindfulness of breathing practice. So I will explain it. If you're sitting on a bed or on the floor, just cross your legs in whatever way is comfortable for you. If you're in a chair, put your feet flat on the floor. All the other instructions are the same. Put your hands palms down on your knees or palms up like that in your lap, or with your hands like that in your lap, whichever is most comfortable for you. Arms are relaxed at your side. Back is straight. This is really the most important thing, is that your back is straight but relaxed. Okay. Shoulders should be back a little bit. So you may want to just roll them back. Back of the neck is also straight, so your chin's going to be tucked in a little bit. Mouth is closed but relaxed, tongue resting on the roof of the mouth. Breathing through the nose. The eyes ideally are open, looking down in front of you a few feet. So that's the posture. This posture is the way it is because it supports the mind in meditation. So we want to first bring your awareness to the sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose. So you're going to be focusing sort of at the end of your nose there. Or take a moment to notice that sensation, first of all. Okay. So the practice is to try your best to maintain continuous awareness of that sensation of the breath and letting the thoughts come and go. So, what you're trying to do is just focus on the breath in a really relaxed and open way and allowing the thoughts to do whatever the thoughts are going to do without following after them, without getting distracted by them. Chances are you're going to get distracted pretty quickly. So, if that happens, it just don't make a big deal about it. Just, oh, I got distracted. Okay. Bring your mind back to the breath. That's it. All right. So let's start that now, please. Now you can begin to count the breaths, counting either every in breath or every out breath for a total of 10 breaths. Counting helps us to realize more quickly if we've gotten distracted because we will have lost count. If you find that you've gotten distracted and you've lost count, again, please don't make a big deal about it. It's just part of the practice. Just bring your mind back to the breath. Start again at 1. You get to 10 without being distracted. Don't let that fact distract you. Just go back to 1. Start again. So please begin that now. Okay, can end the meditation now. Um, so we're going to do the closing prayers, and you can download them if you look at the link below. You'll find them, but since I don't know who has and has not downloaded them, I will simply share my screen with you and you can see them. Okay, so these are the long life prayers for our teachers. We'll just say these in Tibetan, beginning with the Dalai Lama, then Jigme Khyentse Rinpoche, Drupal Palmo Rybicki, and all the teachers. Manri Wawe Kowe Shinkansu, Pentante Wamalu Juene, Chenesi Wanton Singam Soye, Shapekya Kapa Tu Shi. Om Swasti Jigme Kempe Kalung Yamparu, Kunkap Session Suset Puntawa, Nidur San of Geno Bucho, Sechega We Shaki Jansu So. Om Swasti Sevagam Surgeon of Denjune, Lusim Daxe Kutu Pamawa, Samsum Natre Gilbo Dadane, Lapshantan Deshitan Dake Show. Lama Gungang Sampo Sua Deb Shutu Kutse Ringwa Sua Deb Trine Tashin Geba Sua Deb Lama Dandre Wami Pachingi Lo. And the next page, this one we say once in English, once in Tibetan, remaining 3 just in English, and then the 100-syllable mantra. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of cyclic existence, may I free all beings. Sonandi Tanche Zipani, Domne Nebe Dranam Pancheshi, Egana Chi Balon Tupai, Sipe Sole Doa Doa Sho. May Bodhicitta, precious and sublime, arise where it has not yet come to be, and where it has arisen, may it never fail, but grow and flourish evermore and more. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may it too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. Ever absorbed in the display of divine forms in primordial awareness, appearance, sound, and perception in the state of divinities, mantras, and dharmakaya, may I, inseparable from the practice of the profound and secret great yoga, attain within the essence of mind the state of one taste. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manubalaya Vajra Sattva Tenoba Dishta Treto Me Bawa Sunto Kayo Me Bawa Subho Kayo Me Bawa Anurakto Me Bawa Sawasidi Me Prayatsa Sawakam Sutsame Chitam Shri Yang Kuruhum Aha ha ho bhagavan Savatata Gata Vajramami Mutsa Vajri Bhavamaha Samaya Sattva. Okay, so before you head out, I just want to make a couple of announcements. Please check the links below for information about signing up for the newsletter, which I highly recommend, our website, and links to make donations and so forth. So if you could make a donation, no matter how small, no matter how big, we really, really need and appreciate it. So please think about that. Upcoming, we have Buddha sadhana practice Tuesday night from 7:30 to 8. It's such a nice practice. I really recommend that you join us. Again, information for that is below. And then next Saturday, again, we have meditation online. So please join us for that. Meanwhile, thank you again for joining us this morning, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.